Good morning, Los Angeles. Bright and early day 3 of the NFL draft. It's LAFB Live. We are going over rounds 1 and 2 and looking forward to round 4, joined by Josh Palmer and Trey McKitty Stan. Both of them on the mic here. Stephen Hagen, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm shocked we're here. Day 3 finally. Seems like a long time coming. Draft's been fun so far. Let me ask you that. Just how has the draft been? Not necessarily for the Chargers, but just for you. How have you enjoyed yourself so far?
It's been a lot of fun, man. And, I've always been a big fan of the draft, but I think, being able to cover all these prospects and know who they are and be able to say like, oh, I like this pick for this team. It just makes it more fun for me in general. I graded about 230 players this year, which was actually a little less than last year, but it's been a lot of fun this year, and I think a lot of teams have made some standout moves. I love what the Browns have done. I really liked what the Bills did as well, adding a couple edge rushers to try and kind of close the gap between them and the Chiefs. So there have been some really good drafts, some really confusing drafts. I think the Steelers have made some really questionable picks. I know they got my guy Kendrick Green, but taking a running back and a tight end with their first 2 picks was definitely puzzling.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun, man. Been a lot of fun in general.
Always fun. So you basically alluded to it, so you might just repeat yourself, but who so far do you think has had the best draft through 3 rounds and who has had the worst? And all of it's, relative, because once they get on the field, it could be completely different, but just on paper, the way you had guys ranked, who's had the best, who's had the worst so far?
Like I said, I really like the Browns. What they have done, they get Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and Anthony Schwartz.
Crazy.
3 guys that I was pretty high on. I had a top 10 grade on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, so there were rumors of a potential heart issue for him, which could kind of tell us why he fell a little bit. But you're looking at a secondary now that it has been revamped at like the highest level, right? Because they're going to get Troy Hill through free agency. They got John Johnson in free agency. They'll get Grant Delpit back from injury. And then they add in Greg Newsome and now Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So, a while back, we kind of talked about the Chargers adding John Johnson because it would give them a ton of options with Derwin James, right? Now the Rams have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and John Johnson that they can play over the middle. And essentially, they're going to be in a dime package on every single play and just have 2 crazy good athletes, not lose anything against the run. And that's huge in the AFC because you look at all these teams, the Bills, the Chiefs, now the Chargers have some good weapons, and the Browns have the horses to keep up with all of them on defense. And honestly, like, it's such a weird world, but I think they're the second best team in the AFC right now as it stands. And that's wild considering that they went 0-16 like 3 years ago.
Yeah. No, they've done a phenomenal job and rebuilt and retooled. And yeah, I'm assuming you have Chiefs still.
Yeah.
I think many would, but I think it's not out of the realm that the Browns are very, very close behind them. Essentially, I think the Browns have honestly a better top to bottom team, but you take Mahomes over Baker Mayfield, and that's kind of what pushes, I think, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are, they've done amazing things on their offensive line. Somehow getting Creed Humphrey, I'm still sick about that. Arguably the best center in the draft falls to the Chiefs.
I was so mad about that one.
Yeah.
So mad. I went on a little rant on our stream about the Packers taking Josh Myers right before the Chiefs take Creed Humphrey. It just made no damn sense. But sorry to interrupt you there.
No, yeah. The Packers have had an interesting draft too. I feel like they took a corner a little high in the first round. You mentioned, Josh Myers, who obviously we've said all along the simulations, the mock draft simulators are, they're all over the place. But I think just across the board, everyone kind of had Josh Myers going in that 3rd and 4th round. So taking him not only in the 2nd, but taking him above Creed Humphrey, I was like, all right. I guess they like Ohio State centers, though. That's where Corey Lindsey came from.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I also think the Dolphins had a really good draft, or have had a really good draft, rather. You get Jalen Waddle to give to a lot of options deep, right? Because you have Devontae Parker, who's kind of that jump ball guy. Now you have Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle, who are the speed guys. They get Jalen Phillips at 18. I've kind of flip-flopped all throughout this process of who the number one edge rusher is. But I was always debating between Jalen Phillips and somebody else. Javon Holland, big fan of him as well. Liam Eichenberg is going to be a great right tackle for them and provide a stabling force. And then they get Hunter Long. So, they're kind of showing their faith in Tua, giving him some weapons, giving him some protection. And I think the Dolphins have had a really good draft so far.
Yeah, a lot of people were torn with them taking Penei Sewell with their first pick. They go Jamar Chase, but then they're able to get a really good tackle afterward. Not to Penei Sewell's level, but when you have a receiver prospect like Jamar and you want to give weapons to Tua.
Well, the Bengals took Chase.
Sorry. Yeah. They took Waddle. Yeah. As you said, Waddle. Took a receiver, though. Took a really high.
Yeah.
And pairing him with Tua, who they've, had some chemistry together before. So you can go both ways on that. I think it depends kind of where you sit. I'm sure you would always say take the big guys in the trenches first, add skill guys later.
100%.
I can go both ways, but it worked out for the Chargers because then that's a good segue into that as Rashawn Slater was able to fall to them. Daniel Jeremiah had him as his number one tackle prospect. I know you had him as 2, but I think thrilled that he was there because I don't think any of us thought that he would be there at 13. What just went through your guys' thought? I know you guys were doing a live stream. We were doing one too. When the board was falling as it was, and all of a sudden, the Cowboys, trade back, the Broncos end up taking corner with Patrick Surtain, and it starts thinking like this could happen. Slater could be there at 13, and they didn't have to trade up for him.
Well, I never thought that Rashawn Slater was going to be on the board for them. I never thought that was a possibility. I know that it was a popular mock draft selection for them, but all the intel from the Lions and from the Panthers suggested that if they weren't going to take a quarterback, they were going to take an offensive tackle. And similar with the Broncos, Benjamin Albright said a couple times that if they don't take a quarterback, he wouldn't have been surprised if it were Rashawn Slater. So I never felt like it was a possibility. And you add in Dave Gettleman, who is genuinely obsessed with adding trench picks to his draft, which is it's definitely not a bad obsession. It's just kind of the selection of those players that kind of is interesting to watch. So yeah, I never thought that it was possible. Once the Broncos took Surtain, I was like, okay, this means that somebody's going to trade up for a quarterback, which means that maybe it could still happen. Then the Cowboys trade back at 12, and I was like, oh, they're going to trade back. They're going to take an offensive tackle. And then they took Micah Parsons, and then I was like, man, this is actually going to happen. Like, they're actually going to get Rashawn Slater. So, yes, TJ Scooter, Trey McKinney stan, really. But yeah, I just never really felt like it was possible. And so to get him at 13, not having to trade up for him, it was just such a great way to start the draft for the Chargers. I know we'll get into the rest of the picks, but couldn't be happier with Rashawn Slater. And as soon as the Vapor jerseys come out for him, I'm buying a jersey 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You got to get the offensive line jerseys.
100%. So, it just fits. It fits me so well. Like I have to get an offensive line jersey.
Oh yeah. You coach, middle school, you said, right? So you can be out there repping the jersey, looking good. Yeah. I think when the Cowboys traded back, and you kind of alluded to it, and then there was like reports coming out, at least with the guys I was with, that they were going in on Slater. Like I think it was James Slater was saying the Cowboys were in on Rashawn Slater. And so when it came, when we get the tweets, because we always get, Twitter's always a little ahead of the broadcast, that it's Micah Parsons. It's like, holy cow. Like, it just falls in the lap of Tom Telesco and the Chargers, and, couldn't be more thrilled. He'll be day one starter. We talked last night with some of the guests that I had on that don't see this as happening, but if for some reason, whether it's Trey Pipkins makes a huge leap or they find someone else, he has versatility where you can move him if you need to. I don't think they'll do that, but at least that's an option. Or like if Bulaga gets hurt. I mean, it seems to be the theme with the guys they added is versatility, because they can all kind of play wherever outside of like Brian Bulaga. But in this offseason, that's been the theme. So love it. I mean, I couldn't be more thrilled. Wasn't shocked, or I was shocked. Couldn't be more shocked, I should say. And it was a great first round. And I think the Chargers now, they have their offensive line. I think they'll go from, what do you think? Okay, because obviously cohesion is a big thing with offensive lines. And Frank Smith now is tasked with getting these guys to play together in a cohesive unit, because it takes, in my opinion, a full season. So we've
talked about this before. Yeah.
Okay. So realistically, I think many people will say, wow, being the 32nd ranked offensive line unit, they could jump with the moves they make, they could jump in the top 10, top 5 because of talent. Realistically, though, what do you think that jump is that we should anticipate? Because it takes more time than that than just adding the right pieces. You got to get together as a unit.
Yeah, it does take time. And I think chemistry and cohesion along the offensive line is something that doesn't really get talked about a lot. And we interviewed Chris Hairston last year, and we were asking him about, like, just the general thought process of offensive linemen and how things work. And Corey Linsley has kind of alluded to this, like, communication along the offensive line is such a big deal, and it's something that the Chargers really suffered in last year because they had just this revolving door at right guard and right tackle, and then the left side of the line, it wasn't great to be a little nicer.
Yeah.
So it is something that kind of goes by the wayside amongst most fans. That being said, like, they did 100% upgrade at all 4 spots that they needed to. In terms of how high they can go, a lot of that is going to depend on Brian Bulaga's health. If Brian Bulaga can play 13, 14, maybe 15 games, 17 if we're lucky, which I would be shocked if he played all 17 games, to be honest, then I think they could realistically get into like the 15 to 18 range in terms of like efficiency and pressures and run blocking. But it does take time. And, none of these players, I mean, I know Linsley and Bulaga know each other, but, they've never played with Ode Abuji. They don't know what he likes. They don't know what Matt Filer likes. They don't know what Rashawn Slater likes. So
and Rashawn Slater, as good as he's going to be, he is a rookie. There's going to be a transition, and he didn't play last
100%.
year either. He didn't play last year, so he hasn't played.
So there's
going to
be rust too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be negative because I think it's going to be phenomenal, but I just temper expectations. It's not like all of a sudden this is an all-pro unit yet. I think they'll get there, but there's going to be some growing pains, and that's expected. And that's why you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league that can still get the general out there and get it done. So
it's going to be a little bit more of a transition than people think. I took a lot of slack a couple weeks ago saying, like, listen, I don't expect this team to be a playoff team. Like, I expect them to be competitive, and I expect them to, win 7, 8, 9 games, but anything more than that is just a bonus. And so everybody was like, well, they've done all this great movements. And it's like, okay, but it takes time. Yeah. And it's not just that the roster is being turned over. They replaced every single coach except for Give Smith. So this year, there's a lot of excitement. I'm very excited for the direction of this team. But to me, like, 2022 is the year where I'm like, I'm going to expect 12, 13, 14 wins in 2022. I'm going to expect, a top 10 offensive line in 2022. I'm not expecting that this year. I'm expecting improvement. I'm expecting them to be more efficient on both sides of the ball, create some more turnovers, be more efficient in the red zone. I'm looking for these little improvements in these areas. But if they get top 15 offensive line, that's a huge win, right? Because they go either from 31st or 32nd, depending on what metric you're looking at, to 15th is going to be a massive leap forward.
Yeah. And positive looking, they can't be worse. So
think,
can't be worse. Be better.
It won't be worse. Yeah.
Yeah. I got it real quick. The Jaguars pick finally came in. Got to give a shout out. Finally, another USC guy goes off the board. Jay Tufele, defensive tackle. I think him, Marlon Tuipulotu, were both kind of, in similar. They could go in similar areas, so we could see Marlon maybe go here soon too. I personally was pretty surprised that after Elijah Vera Tucker, not a single SC guy went. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I thought could have been a 3rd round pick. One of these D tackles could have gone potentially in the 3rd round. Elijah Griffin, the corner, is probably later, but he could have. So I think we'll start seeing them go at a clip. And I have to say, because I said I'd be the first to say I was wrong, I pretty much guaranteed Demetric Felton wouldn't make it past the 3rd round. Here we are in the 4th. He has not picked yet. I still think he goes sooner than the 6th, but I was wrong. I got some shirts that I'll be giving away. Let me pull one of those up while you counteract that talk. I'll show what I'm giving away.
Yeah, so Michael Carter, the running back from North Carolina, just went to the Jets as well. And the Falcons pick is in. So round 3 is getting off to a fast start. I expect these picks to come in really quick like yesterday. But, this is exciting. I thought that, it sucks because I felt like if Jay Tufele had played this year, he probably would have been a higher pick.
Yeah. Well, I remember, not to cut you off, but heading into before the opt-out, so heading in, I like summertime, there was some, these are like way too early mock drafts, but I think he was rated as like a first round prospect.
Yeah. The defensive tackle class this year was just, it was a lot of the same players, right? Like I look at Jay Tufele and I look at Levi Onwuzurike and I'm like, I see a very similar player here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it was a bad year to be a defensive tackle, and it was a worse year to be a defensive tackle who opted out. But the Jaguars are having an interesting draft this year outside of the Trevor Lawrence pick.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. And, I know they say they're ecstatic about it, but it's interesting one. Okay. So here is, you can pick up this shirt on LAFB Network. We have partnered with Dimitri Feldman. So he is signed off on this. We're donating a bunch of the proceeds to charity of his choice. But I think it's pretty cool looking shirt.
Yeah, I like that shirt. I think it's really cool how that's the drip thing, like the LAFB logo up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks for him. I wish that he would have gone earlier, but we'll see. The way that the receiver board has kind of panned out has been interesting. I said this last night. I had Josh Palmer as my 11th highest graded receiver, and he was the 11th receiver off the board. So a little sweet piece of irony there.
Yeah, which we'll get into in a second. So let's keep moving. I guess stick now. We'll go to the Chargers' next pick, since they did pick before the Rams still. And again, what a dream scenario. I think me and you seemed like we were the more realistic people, like among Chargers and Rams Twitter, about how boards would fall. And I just really did not think Asante Samuel Jr. would be there at 47. JOK was there too, but shocking that he fell. And what just happened? I picked
the Falcons took Darren Hall, the corner from San Diego State.
Wow.
That's early for him, in my opinion. Sorry to cut you off there.
No. That alludes to what happens. There's stuff happening in the second round like that too, where you're like, what? And then all of a sudden, here we are sitting at pick like 45. And I tweeted out like the Chargers will have their pick of JOK or Asante Samuel Jr., which is just shocking. And they go with Asante Samuel, who's just going to be so good in Brandon Staley's system. What were going through your mind when not only the pick came in, but when the board was just falling and you're like, shit, this could be a reality?
Well, once the edge rusher run in the first round happened, I was like, okay, like they're going to get a legitimate secondary piece and potentially get Asante Samuel Jr. or Trayvon Merrick. So the way that the board panned out for the Chargers in the first two rounds could not have been better. Mm-hmm. We went through a very weird phase of Asante Samuel Jr. where a lot of people were like, all right, we're not going to assume that he's going to be on the board at 47. It's not going to happen. And then you hear just kind of the intel and the league is always going to value taller, longer corners more. And, that's just kind of the way the defenses have worked these days.
Absolutely.
But getting Asante Samuel Jr., it's very similar to Rashawn Slater, honestly. You can play Asante Samuel Jr. on the outside. He can be your boundary corner. You can rotate in with Chris Harris. You can play Samuel Jr. in the slot. He kind of mentioned this last night. He started his career at Florida State as a slot corner, and then moved to the outside once he got, a little more experience, a little more strength to his frame. And so you have some flexibility there with him and Chris Harris. And you have some flexibility if they want to draft another corner today or next year. If they want to, if they're looking at a board next year and there's a great outside corner, they can take him, because Asante Samuel Jr. can play in the slot. So this is a great selection. I love the attitude that he brings. Love the way that he tackles. And obviously he's got the bloodlines, right? So I'm very excited about Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slam dunk, home run pick. Just didn't think it was possible. So the fact that it did, right. I think it's like almost like just shocking. Like, how did both these work out in the first, second round? Like, I don't know if you felt this way, but I was like, even if the Telesco fumbles away the third round, like this is so exceeded my expectations that, hey,
right.
If he thinks the guys I got in the third are going to be acceptable, then I'm just going to accept it too, because of how good these first two rounds were.
Oh, the first two rounds was a dream scenario. Like this, it could not have gone better. The board could not have played out better for the Chargers. And I'm just so excited about Slater and Samuel. I mean, I wasn't to the point where he can fumble the third round, but I'm very excited about those first two picks. And as you can see by my name, I am excited about the third round picks as well. Yeah,
which we'll get to in just a second. But the Rams did have a pick in the second round. They did not trade out of it. They took Tutu Atwell. Surprised many. But I mean, again, I hate being like, oh, I told you so, but I was very kind of persistent. I thought the Rams would take a juice player with this. I know everyone was saying offensive line or linebacker, but I thought they would add some juice to McVay's offense. I didn't think it would be Tutu Atwell. I didn't know if that would be the juice they would add. I think there are other players that have speed also, but a little more size, considering Atwell is like 150 when he's wet. But that to say, he will be dynamic in this offense. He will be that piece. I hate comping guys to this because this guy's just a freak, but similar to like a Tyreek Hill, where he is just a burner, can be punt return, kick return. They said they will try him out at punt return. And there's, reports that during Zoom calls, McVay told Tutu, we may not let you get out of the second round. So they were planning this the whole time. Like that could have been their second round pick. And they thought if they would have moved back or waited, he may have not been there. So I know a lot of Rams Nation was not a lot. I'd say 99% of Rams Nation was very not happy, very unpleased. But I remember last year when they took Cam Akers, a lot of Rams Nation was unhappy. And now everyone is a Cam Akers stan and loves the guy. And obviously he's the running back of the future. Not saying Tutu's going to be that, but I do think when you peel back the layers a little bit, this is not as bad as a pick as it seems. Yes, probably is it a little high? Is it a reach? Was it a need? But as McVay said, they don't feel they have a lot of glaring needs. They just want to add depth and add role players, and he's certainly that. So what's your thoughts on old Tutu?
Well, we kind of talked about this, right? Because Sean McVay told us that they wanted to be more explosive on offense, and especially after they got Matthew Stafford. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to use Tutu Atwell, because he was kind of used as a deep threat, but he was more so the yards after catch gadget kind of player at Louisville. If they can turn him into, I know they kind of made the comment of Deshaun Jackson Jr. yesterday. So if they can turn him into more of a deep threat, I think it's fine value, right? And so, like, you can never have too much speed. And so you put Atwell and Deshaun Jackson on, opposite sides of each other, and you let Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp work the middle. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, a lot of fans just kind of look at these selections, and it was very similar for the Chargers. That's a reach. They could have gotten him later. Sometimes you have to react to the board. And so I think right as the Seahawks took Dwayne Eskridge, it was like, okay, this is going to be the run on receivers. Yep. This is going to be where you have to take your guy. And it ended up happening. You had Tutu Atwell, you had Terrace Marshall, right, back to back from each other. And then obviously the Chargers had to react to that as well, and they took Josh Palmer. But I like Atwell, man. His size is really my biggest concern of just how he'll be able to handle the physicality in the NFL. A lot of people have those concerns about Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith outweighs Atwell by 20 pounds. Yeah. So, I had Atwell as my 14th best receiver. So, I don't love the value there, but I understand the pick. I can see the vision of them, adding a lot of speed to the offense. And listen, I think Robert Woods is one of the most underrated players in the league, but he is getting up there in age. Cooper Kupp has had some injury issues as well. So I think taking a receiver for the Rams is fine, honestly.
Yeah, they were going to take one at some point. I think, as you just said, like, fans and even analysts, even us. I've said it, you've said it, I'm sure. But yeah, we look too much into where the player goes as opposed to who the player is and how they fit with the team. And when you look back, in a cosmos, or look back in a vacuum, even a year later, and if this player A, player B, or specifically if Atwell, is getting you 500 yards and, a few touchdowns, it can be that gadget player. Who cares if you took him in the second round or the fourth round? Like, does it really matter if he's contributing to your team and if you get value after him? So obviously that's just my glass half full mentality coming out, but
100%.
I think that can be said on this weekend when there's so much criticism going on for so many players, and we'll get to more of that for the Rams' next pick in a minute here, but probably for the Chargers pick as well. And I think if you just take away where the player is selected, and you look at the player and you say, okay, how does this player fit within our team? Usually, not always, like we mentioned, some with the Raiders picks, the Jaguars picks, those are a little different. But I think in the case of these LA teams, I think you can say for every selection they've made, I see exactly where this player fits and what the team wants them to do. And when you look at it like that, it doesn't look as bad as to where they actually were selected. So I think Tutu, I grew more into liking it afterwards, talked myself into it more. Hopefully those watching can kind of feel that as well. But now it's your turn to plead the case for Josh Palmer, who was the Chargers pick in the third round, who is a good receiver, has similar skill sets to Mike Williams. He's kind of a jump ball guy. He's not a burner. However, he did burn Patrick Surtain against Alabama. So I think the speed can be there on tape, not necessarily on the 40 time, which me and you have talked about. I find that way more important than testing. But yeah, talk to me about Josh Palmer, how you thought that pick went, and if you like it. I'm assuming you do, considering you're Josh Palmer and Trey McKitty stan. So talk Chargers Nation down from the ledge, because as Rams Twitter was imploding at pick 57, then Chargers kind of joined them at this
100%. Yeah, so just real quick, the Titans, they traded up in the draft in the 4th round to take Tutu Atwell's teammate, Des Fitzpatrick, who I love Des Fitzpatrick. I thought that he was one of the most underrated players in this class. And then the Browns continue their good draft, in my opinion, and they took James Hudson, the tackle out of Cincinnati. That's a great spot for him. You can sit and learn behind Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin. So great spot for him. Unfortunately, tested really poorly, which didn't really match the film, but I think that's a good spot for him. And I think he grew up in Ohio, so that's good for him too.
Yeah, I mean, going to Cincinnati, local kid, and this could be your Orlando Brown pick. Same guy that, had great film at Oklahoma and then tested horribly, so he fell to the 3rd round. And now, obviously he's been great so far, and he was a huge asset that was traded to the Chiefs. So that could be similar to Hudson. So, all right, go ahead.
So, yeah, I was very surprised about the Josh Palmer pick. I was a big fan of him. Like I said, I had him as my 11th best receiver. And there were, guys like Jim Nagy and Matt Miller said that Palmer had a lot of fans in the league. I just didn't know how many and how early he would go. Jim Nagy said that he thought that Josh Palmer wouldn't get out of round 2, and obviously that happened. So I'm a big fan of him. I know a lot of people kind of immediately went and looked at his stat sheet and saw that he never had a 1,000-yard season, and that he was, kind of like the wide receiver 2 and 3 for the Volunteers over the last couple of years. But I think teams, they look at traits first and they look at production second. And I think that's kind of something that fans kind of tend to overlook. And obviously you would love it to, intertwine. But, I think with Palmer, like you said, he's got the physicality, he's got the jump ball, contested catch skill set, but he's a great route runner too. He's got a great release package, gets off press coverage really, really well, which is something Brandon Staley alluded to last night. And listen, like we kind of talked about them adding a receiver at some point just due to the uncertainty of who they have. And I think a lot of people looked at it and it's like, oh, it's an overcrowded receiver room, but it's overcrowded, but it's not like over talented. And I think that's kind of what I've been trying to tell people, because you had KJ Hill and Joe Reed last year, but they never played. They never got to see the field. And KJ Hill, he had a great game against the Raiders, but that was pretty much it. And then you have Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson, who were a big surprise last year, but they're 2 undrafted free agents, and they're free agents after this season. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that room, and Mike Williams is a free agent as well. So I happen to think that Mike Williams is going to be back after this season. The front office loves him, and they invested a huge pick in him. So I happen to think that Mike Williams is back. But if he does kind of outproduce their budget, or if he continues to be injured, then they have Josh Palmer, who I really love. And I think a lot of fans, again, looked at it as kind of a reach pick, but I really, really like the player. And I think he has the skill set to be a much better professional player than he was in college. And if you go back and watch any games of Josh Palmer, watch the Alabama and Georgia games from last year, going up against 4 NFL corners who are going to be drafted this year.
Already 3 of them are drafted.
Already 3 of them are drafted, yeah. And I mean, he had the best game against Patrick Surtain of any receiver in the SEC. So that carries a lot of weight for teams. And then he went down and had a great Senior Bowl, and we know how Tom Telesco loves the Senior Bowl. So I was a little surprised they took him at 77, especially with De'Ami Brown on the board. But I really, really like the player.
Yeah, no, well said. And one thing too, I know people were concerned about his production at Tennessee, but he had like a carousel of quarterbacks. So, I mean, when you're a receiver
and bad quarterbacks,
like when you play wide receiver, you're pretty reliant on your quarterback to get you the football. It's like a running back where they just hand it to you. Like you have to get the ball through the air, and Palmer didn't have that at Tennessee. So I think that explains a little bit of the production, but if you can see the the intangibles, great hands. I saw someone posted a video, actually, you retweeting our live feed, and someone posted a little like highlight video of him running routes in the Tennessee Fieldhouse, and with like head cam. I mean, that's pretty badass video. Kind of,
it was.
I know
it was cool.
Yeah, it doesn't show like what it does in a game, but I'm like, it's still like fun just seeing his route running, his tactician ability, his hands. So yeah, I think again, as I said, and I ranted a minute ago, you got to look at the player and how they fit, not necessarily at the pick position. Obviously, if they're taking Josh Palmer at the 13th overall pick, then we could have a bigger discussion. But once you're in the third round here, pick 77, I think first round picks are obviously one thing. I don't need to explain that. Everyone knows the value there. Second round picks are still like usually first round guys that just kind of slide, or if other teams took guys that fill needs. Once you get to the third round, third through, I mean, maybe not 7, but third through like 5, third through 6, you're going about fits now. You're going about either best player available on your board or just what fits our scheme, what we want to do. We don't care if it's a guy that some team has valued at the 5th round. If he fits our scheme, we're going to take him in the 3rd round, not take any chances. And that's what they did, I think, with Josh Palmer.
Yeah, and we talked about on our mock draft, right? Like everybody kind of wanted them to take an Anthony Schwartz, a Tutu Atwell, Dwayne Eskridge, but those are all slot receivers. Those are all players who, will come into a very crowded, group for the Chargers, because Austin Eckler is their best slot receiver, and then they have Keenan Allen, who will take reps in the slot. They have Jared Cook, who will take the majority of his reps in the slot. They have Joe Reed, who hopefully is going to be able to fill that kind of gadget role. It will take reps from the slot. You have Jalen Guyton, who will take reps from the slot. And KJ Hill, unfortunately, seems kind of to be the odd man out. But if he plays, he's taking reps at the slot. So the Chargers really only have had two true outside receivers in Tyron Johnson and Mike Williams. So if they were going to take a receiver, it was always going to be an outside guy. And Josh Palmer, I think, is that. He can play in the slot some on occasion, but again, it gives them some flexibility, right? If Mike Williams leaves, then they have a 3rd round pick that they just invested in, who theoretically next year could be taking a nice sophomore lead forward. So that's kind of been the theme of the draft so far, is flexibility and positional versatility for them. And I'm a big fan of the pick. And so it's been a run on USC players for you. I don't know.
Yep.
But Amon-Ra St. Brown is officially off the board.
Yep, saw that. Cameron Sample goes to the Bengals out of Tulane, and then Amon-Ra gets taken, the pick right after, to the Lions. And then the Lions back-to-back.
Sucks. That sucks for him.
I know. He'll be literally like the number 1 receiver.
That's true. That's true.
He'll be the guy. And then I just got to say, the next pick the Lions had again, and I'm personally bummed they took Drew Dahlman, who I really wanted to fall to the Rams. Not sure if the Rams would have taken him, but thought he was a good fit. So Drew Dahlman out of Stanford.
Who took Dahlman? The Lions took him? When did they take him?
Just right now. At least that's the update I got on Twitter, unless this guy has bad sources, but it hasn't been announced yet. But so sorry if I just ruined it for you.
Well, I'm looking at on NFL Network's Twitter, and the only recent one I see is Lions taking Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, I got that. Connor Hughes of The Athletic seemed to be breaking picks very quickly all draft, and so he said Dahlman to the Lions with their next pick. But
they must be trading up or something then.
So on the draft tracker, it shows Lions back-to-back, 112 and 113. So I don't know if they traded into that, which it looks like they.
Looks like they did with Carolina and then Cleveland.
And then Cleveland, yeah.
Okay. Oh, there's the Cowboys with Jabril Cox too.
Oh, did I miss that one? Oh, this thing is like way behind, I think.
So the Lions went Amon-Ra St. Brown and then Derek Barnes, the linebacker from Purdue. The Falcons took Dahlman.
Ah, okay.
Okay, yeah, Connor Hughes, yeah.
Yeah. I just said it wrong. So,
damn, that sucks. The Cowboys are loading up on linebackers, so my guy Francis Bernard is getting pushed down the depth chart, unfortunately.
Yeah, taking Micah Parsons in the first. Are you surprised? We're getting off topic. But are you surprised Jabril Cox fell this far, or not really?
Kind of. I mean, we hear all the time, right, that the NFL and the linebackers are going towards these athletic run and chase linebackers who can cover But then the guys who are thumpers always go earlier than people think. Like Pete Warner went in the second round. The Rams took Ernest Jones. So, it sucks because I think he's I think he was best covered linebacker outside of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I thought Owusu-Koramoah could have been a safety, but the way that Jabril Cox covers is safety-esque. And that's going to be so valuable for the Cowboys, who are going to be running, the Seattle cover 3 defense, and their linebackers have to cover and know how to play in space. So that's a good pick for them. They had a weird day yesterday, but that's a good pick for them.
Yeah, there's the tweener linebackers that I think Twitter and fans love seem to, like you said, they're viewed differently among NFL circles. Some teams really value them because of the versatility, and some want the more traditional linebacker that all of us think the NFL has moved past. But every year we see these guys,
damn it,
get drafted.
Sorry, the Giants took Ellerson Smith. Damn it.
There he goes. And the Rams are on the clock. Which the obviously the actual feed is way behind, but okay. Well, let's talk then, before we even talk about the Rams' second round pick, let's talk about who you think fits here for them, since they're on the clock at 117. They took Atwell, they took Jones, linebacker, which we'll discuss a little bit in a minute. I mean, do they stick to the offensive line here, do you think? Is there players on your board that you think are just BPA that can, really fill for them? We got Rams Chargers back to back, so might as well just get into it.
Are they back to back right here?
Yeah, unless this NFL board is delayed.
So they need a player who the Rams, that is, they need someone who can do center and guard flexibility, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's why I look at a guy like David Moore. I tweeted earlier that I would like the Chargers to take him. I'm a big fan of his. He played center and guard at Grambling, really athletic, can play both spots, like I said. And you watch the Senior Bowl tape, and he was arguably the best offensive lineman there in terms of guards. So that could be a fit. I talked about Tristan Hodge. They could get potentially later, if they want more of like a physical center. They could take Trey Hill from Georgia. He's, typical SEC 320-pound mauling center. I don't know how much that would fit them. But they kind of missed out on the good centers that fit. So
did I don't think so, but did Ryan McCollum go yet from Texas A&M?
No,
I don't think he's gone. So that could be.
And I did not grade him. He was the one Texas A&M lineman that I did not get to.
So I actually did. I did film study on him, and I liked him. Personally, I liked him better than the Ohio State center. So I liked Dahlman better, but I thought a little quicker on his feet, Ryan McCollum was. Tall guy for a center, but he got down in his stance fairly good. Kept his, center of gravity fairly low. So that could be potentially fit, but I also wouldn't be shocked here if they add a corner. I think that's definitely a position they'll need to add at some point after losing Troy Hill, and depending how their board is and how they see fit. I don't know if there's any corners you think would fit there. I know we've talked when we did mock drafts throughout the last 4 weeks, Oklahoma corner, Ohio State corner, or Oklahoma State. Sean Wade still on the board. That could potentially be a really good fit for them if they wanted to go corner in this round. So I think some options here. I think fans would want to see them go O-line, but again, knowing Snead and McVay, that's probably not what they'll do.
Yeah, I wouldn't take an offensive lineman if I were them at this point. I don't know how many of these players fit, but you've got Robert Rochelle, the corner from Central Arkansas, would check a lot of boxes for them. Long physical player. It gives them some flexibility again.
Well, the pick is in.
Pick is in. All right.
So I was on to something. They went with a Texas A&M player,
Bobby Brown. Wow.
I was going to say guess, but yeah. Defensive tackle.
Okay.
They do need depth. They do need depth there after losing Morgan Fox and Michael Brockers. So it's definitely a position where they needed to shore up because of the losses there in the offseason. I'm going to be honest.
Where did Fox end up?
He went to Carolina in free agency.
Okay, well, here are the Chargers next. So hopefully they don't do crazy. I would love to see them go a safety here. Jamar Johnson from Indiana is still on the board. I think that would be a fantastic pick for them.
Safety makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so we'll talk. Let's predict Chargers, and then once they pick, we'll go into both the Rams and Chargers pick. So we're not moving on past the Rams that quick, guys. Don't worry. But
yeah. So
since they're
I
back
tweeted this out earlier, but I've got five safeties remaining that made my top 100 board. Cameron Bynum, who we both really like, Jamar Johnson, Tyreek Gillespie, and Damar Hamlin, and Hamza Nasruddin are all still on the board. That's kind of where I would go at this point. The edge rusher market is kind of dried up, especially with Ellerson Smith, but I wouldn't be too surprised. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of his, to be honest. I felt like he was a little overhyped, and just watching him across from Jalen Phillips was always a little underwhelming. But Rashad Weaver, rather, from Pittsburgh, is somebody that they've met with a bunch of times. That could make a lot of sense. Daniel Popper mocked him to them recently, so we'll see, I guess. But I would go safety.
Safety, okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. They could add a lot of those offensive line guys we just talked about for the Rams, potentially Chargers add for more depth. I'm assuming you probably would rather than wait at this point. But they probably would be wise to add more depth at some point in the draft. Let's see here.
All right, Connor Hughes, you're slowing down.
Yeah, what's going on, guy?
Well, now I guess in a Michael Carter thing.
Yeah.
The NFL draft website still has the Cowboys on the clock. So yeah, Connor Hughes is really going quick.
they're way behind. Yeah, mine it says Cowboys pick is in, hasn't even updated it, and has the Giants on the clock.
All right, so Daniel Popper just said the Chargers are selecting Duke edge rusher Chris Rumph.
I'm going to be honest, I don't know much about him. Do you? Is this a guy you graded or?
No, he's not somebody that I graded, but let me look him up real quick.
We'll get into him and Bobby Brown right now. Interesting.
I remember seeing that he had a lot of fans in the league. I remember seeing that people thought that he would go earlier than other people thought. So he had 8 sacks this year for Duke, 6.5 the year before that. So certainly looks like he's been ascending. Let's look up his RAS score real quick, because I know that the Chargers really like using RAS stuff.
Yeah. Which is a good metric to go by, for sure.
If they even have one up for him. But yeah, I'm not too surprised that they went with an edge. I think
they had to
makes a lot of sense.
They need to add one at some point. Not knowing a lot about him, was there guys, though, you would have preferred on the board still?
Not necessarily. I think Ellerson Smith was my guy. Yeah, he didn't run a 40-yard dash, so his RAS score is a little low. He's a little undersized, so a little tough to get there. But he ran a great shuttle time, great 3-cone time. I'm not too familiar with him, so I'll have to go back and watch. But
what's his size?
He's 6'2". He's close to 6'3".
And weight, he's like a 260 guy.
240.
240. Okay, so he's similar to like a Uchenna Nwosu size wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's talk. Well, we can talk more about it, but how much do you know about Bobby Brown, or do you at all? Do you tackle out of Texas A&M, who the Rams took the pick before? He's big guy, 6'4", only 270, so we'll play more of a D end in the 3-4 scheme. So he'd line up like on the opposite side of. He basically would fill the void of Michael Brockers. That's going to be his role. Which, not saying he's
because Brockers got traded to Detroit, huh?
Yeah, Brockers Detroit. Morgan Fox left to Carolina, so it's a big spot they don't want to fill. Obviously, they got Joseph Day in the middle and Aaron Donald, and then they'll have kind of rotational, I think, on that other DN spot. So he could come in and play right away. He's got the size for it. He actually, went up to. It looked like his weight actually went up to 321. I think I saw 270 was what he came to college as when he was a recruit. So could actually play that nose tackle spot. If they wanted to spell, but they have Greg Gaines, they have Sebastian Joseph Day, so I think they need a D end more than a D a true nose tackle, zero tech. So interesting to see where they think he fits.
Yeah, I was a fan of Bobby Brown. I didn't grade him. I got to the point with the defensive tackle class where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But yeah. I did watch a couple of games of him. I just didn't dive super into it. I attended his virtual pro day. Fan of his personality. Definitely fits kind of the flashy, brashy style that the Rams have going for them. But he seems like he's a disruptive player. If he plays a little bit more of that, Morgan Fox, Michael Brocker's role, then I think that's a fine pick. And I mean, he gets to play next to Aaron Donald, so that's a really good situation for him.
Yeah, that usually makes everyone better in the draft when you play next to Donald. So, all right, well, there you have the 2 picks we were able to announce live. Let's quickly go back to the Rams 2nd round pick, and then we'll do the final, or not the Rams 3rd round pick. And we can do the final. I guess we'll do the Chargers first. Trey McKitty.
Yeah.
We'll do Ernest Jones, and then we'll wrap up. I don't think we're going live here for the full rounds 4 through 7, but just wanted to get on here and touch base on what you thought they've done so far. And then we were able to announce them live, which was fun. Wasn't really planning on that. And then we'll enjoy, the rest of round 4 through 7 virtually, I think, if that sounds good.
Yeah. So just real quick, Daniel Popper retweeted this thing from Dane Brugler about Chris Rumpf. And Dane Brugler wrote, he is a slippery edge rusher with quickness and range. He lacks the size, but makes it or his lack of size rather makes it easy for blockers to engulf and redirect him at the point of attack. Overall, Rumpf can be controlled in the run game, and his alignment fit will be different from scheme to scheme, but he has a knack for finding the crease, and his football character is superb. He projects as a gadget pass rusher who can create havoc in sub packages. So
there you go. Okay.
There you go.
Those athletic guys love retweeting the athletic guys. So
yeah, they do.
But Dane Brugler does do great work, so it's not a bad one to do. But
right.
So yeah, good pick. And yeah, I just saw Bobby Brown officially announced as well. He actually led A&M with 5.5 sacks last year.
Well, I did not know that. A&M's got some edge rushers, so that's a little surprising. Yeah. I was very impressed with them watching them on film. But yeah, so getting back to the Trey McKitty pick, I know a lot of people were very, very surprised. Again, considered it kind of a reach, but I would have liked to see them go in a different direction. I'm not going to lie, but I do like the player, as you can see by my name. And the Chargers needed a blocking tight end. They needed someone who can come in, contribute right away, play special teams, and be able to kind of get out on the edges, set the edge, not get beat on the backside blocks. So I figure that they could have waited, but I do like the player, and he was really kind of the last one of the tight ends who could do, both things, block and potentially develop into a pass catcher. I said this on our stream, there were some really good tight ends down in Mobile, including Hunter Long from Boston College, Noah Gray from Duke, and Trey McKitty was the best one, by far. And he was great as a blocker, in team situations, and he separates well, he runs routes well, and he's athletic, had a few one-handed catches that really kind of made some splash plays on Twitter. So there's some potential here as a receiver, but he's going to come in, contribute right away as a blocker. And this is another one. A lot of people were like, well, why would they add a tight end? They have 3 tight ends. It's like, well, they need a blocking tight end, somebody to come in and actually be able to contribute as a blocker. So McKitty's going to play a lot. If you look at all these offenses that have been influenced by the Shanahan scheme, they all have a legitimate blocking tight end. The Packers have Mercedes Lewis. The 49ers have a couple of them. They have George Kittle, who's just as good of a blocker as any lineman is. Mm-hmm. So, and, you look at the Jets, we'll have to add the same kind of thing. But all these Shanahan systems, they all have a good blocking tight end. The Rams have Tyler Higbee, who's a really good blocker, in my opinion. So getting someone like Trey McKitty who can block, set the edge, sure, maybe they could have waited. But like you were saying, I see the role. It's clearly defined. It was a need. If it's a reach a little bit to grab the guy that you want, then so be it.
Yeah, I had in my final mock draft the Chargers going tight end in the 3rd round, just because, yeah, you have Jared Cook for 1 year. Don't know if they're going to re-sign him, and you have 0 blocking ability of any of the 3. So I think the only question I have, and I did see while we're doing this, that I think the Rams have actually traded back up potentially, but we'll keep you posted on that. But what do you think of taking McKitty over like a Brevin Jordan out of Miami or a Tremble out of Notre Dame, who seem to be higher regarded by most. But I also think McKitty's he just wasn't really utilized in Georgia's system, but the talent and skill level there. So what did you think of that?
Well, if they wanted Tremble, they would have had to take him at 77. And that's kind of what I always felt like, because he went at pick like 85, I think. But Tremble and McKitty are very similar players. It's just that Tremble, checked the Notre Dame box, which I think is why everybody kind of connected the dots there. But McKitty's a very similar player, blocker with not a lot of receiving production. And he had a little bit more of a receiving track record at Florida State. Which is another little funny thing. All these Florida State players come into the Chargers. But I'm not too worried about it. Like I said, I see the vision. I see the role. The role is going to be clearly defined. And, we all kind of figured that the Chargers would be investing in some special teams play. The tight end 3 on every single NFL roster is a core special teams contributor. And last year that was Steven Anderson after Virgil Green went down, and it was very, very bad. So, unfortunately, kind of looks like Steven Anderson is going to be the odd man out unless they carry 4 tight ends on the active roster. But I think the Trey McKitty pick is fine. Honestly, I do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I think that'll be just fine. Don't worry, I'm still here. I'm just going to let some stuff going on in the background. So I'll just take the camera off for now. But, okay, let's move into this Rams next pick when they take Ernest Jones. As I mentioned, more of a 2-down linebacker, kind of your old school. Has a great nose for the football, which I know why the Rams wanted him. And as I'm saying that, it did officially, the Rams moved back up to pick 121, traded with the Jaguars. So they, I believe, are on the clock then. But back to Ernest Jones, I think he's graded really good on that RAC score. I think he was like a 4th or 3rd in this class, actually. And graded actually just behind Jared Davis, who was a 1st-round pick not too long ago. So, he kind of, I saw him comp to Micah Kaiser, which is who the Rams already have. But if they felt like that's the kind of linebacker they want in this defense, for the style he plays, he is certainly very good. Led the team in tackles back-to-back years, 86 last year in just like 8 games, I believe. And he just has a great GPS tracker for the football, always in the right place, right time. But he's not going to be your Corey Littleton sideline the sideline covering tight ends. That's just not who he is. But if the Rams stick with what they did with Staley, running a very heavy nickel and dime scheme where they're not asking their linebackers to do that, then I think he'll be just fine and do really, really well in run support. And give some more action for Aaron Donald. So I know the reaction, again, just like Atwell, I know the reaction was not good among Rams fans, but again, when you peel it back, I think he's going to be okay. I think the very next pick that went off the board to Denver, Baron Browning, I think is probably a little better of a linebacker and could have fit a little better, but I don't hate the Ernest Jones pick.
Yeah, I don't hate the Ernest Jones pick either. I know he's not my favorite linebacker. I did grade him. Actually, I had him right above Baron Browning as linebacker 7. So I understand like the hesitation of, the Rams haven't had like a thumper linebacker in a while, but I mean, he's going to have value. He's going to play on every single 1st and 2nd down. And that was a need for them. They needed to improve their run defense. And when you have a player like Aaron Donald gobbling up second double teams and triple teams, Ernest Jones is going to have a strong ability to, impact the run game, get some tackles for loss. I compared him to somebody in my notes. Let me pull my notes on him real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. He'll be a good fit for them right now. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on all this.
So I actually wrote that he reminded me of Denzel Perryman in my notes. So that explains why I had him a little higher than some people.
So yeah, very good in rushing or in run stopping. And I just need to say, actually, the Rams traded down, not up. So
okay,
Jacksonville moved up to the Rams pick.
Wow, that running back from Iowa State went in the 4th round. Jeez.
Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson to the Patriots. He'll be like a LeGarrette Blount from the Super Bowl days.
That's the perfect comparison too.
Right? There you go. So,
but yeah, so I'm a fan of what the Chargers have done. I know a lot of people were kind of up in arms yesterday, but like I said, I see the roles, I can see the vision. Chris Rumph, I don't know enough about him. I'm gonna have to go back and watch him, but he's going to play, because Kyler Fackrell can't take every single sub package rusher snap. So Chris Rumph is going to play, and we're going to see him. And it certainly seems like, at least physically, he checks the box of what the Chargers are looking for at the position. And from what I'm seeing on Twitter, a lot of the reporters really like this pick for them.
Yeah, it seems like more and more that seems to be a good fit. Same with, I think, Bobby Brown for the Rams. So yeah, I mean, this is the point of the draft when you win. This is what you. This is how you build playoff contending teams. Are these late round picks that can contribute? We saw it last year with the Rams getting Jordan Fuller at Ohio State ended up being the starting safety alongside John Johnson. So this is where you build your roster, and a lot of fans, a lot of picks will probably either not be known, not heard of. But come training camp time, it's when you start making a name for yourself, and these guys can really contribute. So I know me and you will be tuned in throughout the day. We'll be tweeting and doing all that. But thank you, my friend, again, LAFB Live. I appreciate you jumping on with me and doing some recap and being able to break some picks live as they came in. And we'll just enjoy the rest of the draft.
Yeah, man, sounds good. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We did just release my article about kind of going over the day 2 picks and analyzing who the Chargers could target today. So go check that out. And yeah, man, thanks. It's been a fun weekend. It's going to be a little sad once it all ends, but then I've got some more film watching to do because Chargers happened to draft an edge rusher, the one edge rusher that I didn't even watch. So
yeah,
got to go back and study him.
Exactly. And the Rams taking a D tackle I didn't watch either. So, so we'll get into that. And, it's like Christmas, man. You prep for it for so long and then it comes and goes so quick. I know I'll be bummed, but there'll be a little bit of relief too because of all the hours put in. It's like, whew, take a step back.
Yep. 100%.
Just now look at the guys that each team did tick and just get more into that. So yeah, check out Steven's article on round 2. Ryan Anderson has an article for the Rams on round 2. So you can check that out on LAFnetwork.com. And then obviously we'll break downs or 2 and 3, excuse me. But then we'll break downs 4 and 7 later tonight into tomorrow. So yeah, my friend, enjoy the rest of the day. Appreciate you.
You too, man. Have a good one.
All right, guys. Enjoy. If you want a meltdown, come talk to us. We'll try to talk you down from the ledge. So if you guys feel like having another meltdown today, let's chat. So enjoy. We'll talk to you guys all here next week. LAFB Live continues 9 a.m. on Saturdays.